Good afternoon, everyone. Volodymyr, let me start by paying tribute to you and to the Ukrainian people. You are fighting not just for Ukraine, but for the freedom and security that is cherished by the British people and by all Europeans every single day. Just a few moments ago here in the United Kingdom, we saw the sentencing of 6 men for Russian-sponsored arson attack on a warehouse in East London. This was a warehouse storing humanitarian aid and satellite equipment destined for Ukraine. We will not tolerate this hostile activity. And it just underlines the point. Your security is our security. What happens on the front line of Donetsk today is shaping our collective future for years to come. And that's why Emmanuel and I brought the Coalition of the Willing together again today. We stand with you, stronger than ever, united behind Ukraine, and united with President Trump in calling for the fighting to stop now, and for the negotiations to begin from the current line of contact. President Trump is right to have imposed sanctions on Russia's oil majors, as the UK has also done, alongside the latest package from the EU. And we must now maintain this pressure. Volodymyr, you have said for months that you're ready for a ceasefire and you're ready to meet Putin. Yet he continues to stall and play for time. Putin is the only person who does not want to stop this war. His strikes on civilians this week made that crystal clear once again, targeting energy infrastructure ahead of winter, hitting young children in their nursery, claiming the lives in Kyiv of a 12-year girl and a 6-month-old baby. This is who Putin is. Time after time, he rejects the chance to end the war. In just the last few days, he's rejected the opportunity for talks once again, instead making ludicrous demands for Ukrainian land, which he could not and has not taken by force. Of course, that is a complete non-starter, and it shows yet again that he's not serious about peace. So we've been clear today that we must respond. Working with the US, this coalition is determined to go further than ever to ratchet up the pressure on Putin, from the battlefield to his war economy, because that is the only way to change his mind and push him back to the table. And in our meeting this afternoon, we came together around a clear plan for the rest of this year. First, we will act to take Russian oil and gas off the global market. Last week, the UK became the first country to sanction all of Russia's oil majors. On Wednesday, the US acted decisively to join us, together with further sanctions from the EU. And we're choking off funding for Russia's war machine. And I'm urging others to take these steps too, to go further to reduce their dependencies and incentivise third countries to stop buying these tainted resources. Second, we're determined to push on with the progress on Russia's sovereign assets and unlock billions to help finance Ukraine's defence. The bill for Russia's destruction in Ukraine should be paid by Russia. So we want to move ahead at speed with the work needed to deliver reparation loans and get the funds flowing to Ukraine. Third, we are strengthening Ukraine's air defence to protect its civilians and its energy infrastructure. I announced today that we're accelerating our UK programme to provide Ukraine with more than 5,000 lightweight multi-role missiles. This programme has created hundreds of brilliant jobs in Belfast, and they're working now to deliver an additional 140 missiles ahead of schedule to bolster Ukraine's defences through the depths of winter. Fourth, we will keep up the military pressure on Putin through the continued provision of long-range capabilities. And finally, while now is the time to prioritise pressure, we're also continuing our work on security guarantees, including the multinational force Ukraine, to uphold a just and lasting peace when that day finally comes. Because, and I say it again, Ukraine's future is our future. What happens in the weeks and months ahead is pivotal for the security of the United Kingdom and all our allies across NATO and beyond. So we are determined to act now, to dial up the pressure on Putin and finally bring him to the negotiating table in good faith. Thank you. Now let me hand over to my friend Volodymyr.
Thank you so much, Keir. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, Keir, Mette, Dick, Mark, and everyone here, thanks you for today's meeting, today's coalition. These are two important days for us, very important. Today, the meeting of the coalition of the willing in London, and the day before there was an EU leaders meeting in Brussels. I thank you guys for all the support and your readiness to keep helping. And today, all the partners confirmed that next year they will continue to support Ukraine, our country, our resilience, especially the financial support, which is crucial. And today, the new Prime Minister of Japan joins the coalition for the first time, and all the signals are clear. Thank you. We all see the challenges these days, and the Russians are carrying out a campaign of terror against our energy system, and they really want to make the winter cold a tool of torment and pressure on Ukraine, our people, and on our defense. And Russia's goal hasn't changed. They want to break us, want to break Ukraine, and they are doing everything to achieve it. So that's why our defense means everything that truly stops Russia from killing, destroying, and terrorizing. First, air defense, and today we spoke in detail with our partners about the systems. It's important that our partners focus on what's most practical and effective, and we gave all the details. Second, of course, it's important that everyone agrees the front needs substantial attention, and the focus must be on it, and thank for all the steps of help. And third, we are promoting a more meaningful approach to diplomacy. Diplomacy matters only when it can lead to real decisions. And when it comes to Russia, that dish has many ingredients. The essential ones are real forms of pressure on Russia, sanctions, our long-range capabilities, political pressure, accountability for war crimes, and real actions regarding Russian assets. Today we all agreed sanctions that hit Russian oil infrastructure, Russian oil companies are a big step, and I thank President Trump and all our partners who are implementing this. And we have to apply pressure not only to Rosneft and Lukoil, but to all Russian oil companies like Surgutneftegas and others, and to the shadow fleet and its infrastructure, and to Russia's oil terminals. And we have to implement all we have discussed today about the Russia's shadow fleet. Besides, we are carrying out our own campaign of pressure with drones and missiles, specifically targeting the Russian oil sector. So the long-range capability directly strengthens diplomacy, the more losses Putin suffers on his own territory. The fewer assaults he can carry out on the front line, and the faster he will agree to meaningful diplomacy. That is why we are working to secure Tomahawk cruise missiles, additional Storm Shadow missiles, other capabilities. Thank you very much, Keir, for today's decision. Thank you for your support that you said. and about long range, and there must be no option left for Russia except to end the war and return peace to our country. And of course, I also want to thank our partners for working with us to produce weapons, for investing in our country, for joint projects, and for the agreements we are now implementing. And one more point is Pearl program. I thank for each contribution. Mark, thank you for coordinating this program, for each contribution, and today we agreed to step up in the coming months. Peace is born from pressure on the aggressor, and that is what we must continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Volodymyr. Mark, can I turn to you?
Yeah, thank you, and good afternoon. And as Keir Starmer and Volodymyr Zelenskyy have said, we just concluded a very productive meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, and I welcome the initiative allies are showing to strengthen our support to Ukraine even further. Just 2 days ago, I was in Washington, where I had a very good meeting with President Trump. The sanctions that the US has placed against Russia's largest oil companies will starve them of revenue and significantly increase the pressure on Putin to come to the negotiating table. And they show once again that President Trump is absolutely committed to end this war and bring a lasting peace to Ukraine. I'm glad that I was able here today to join allies and partners to discuss how we support these peace efforts and how we can increase the pressure on Russia to get there. In Ukraine, Putin is gaining little ground on the battlefield. And where there are marginal gains, they are coming at a huge price. Hundreds of thousands of Russians are dying for Putin's deluded aggression. Ukraine continues defending itself bravely, and our support to them is working. The truth is that Putin is running out of money, troops and ideas. President Trump said it very well. They should stop where they are now. And now is the right time to increase the pressure on Russia, so we can finally get a fair and a just peace for Ukraine. I therefore welcome the recent announcements by European allies and Canada of additional military aid to Ukraine. The developments on the battlefield show that our support to Ukraine is working, and we need to keep it up. We need to pair this support with sanctions and economic pressure, and the EU's 19 seconds package against Russia is another good step in this direction. On both sides of the Atlantic, we want this war to end. And the good discussions this week in Washington, yesterday in the European Council, and now in London indicate we are moving in the right direction. Thank you so much.
Mark, thank you so much. Mette, can I come to you?
First of all, thank you, Keir, for hosting us today, and thank you, Volodymyr, for joining us yesterday in Brussels in a meeting with the European Council, and today in the Coalition of the Willing. It was Putin that called President Trump some days ago because he was scared that Ukraine would get the upper hand. Yet he rejected Trump's proposal for a ceasefire along the current front lines, a suggestion that we support, and same goes for you in Ukraine. But Putin doesn't want to stop the killings. There is no indication that Russia and Putin wants peace, not even a ceasefire. And Russia continues its hybrid war against NATO and the West. Today, the Coalition of the Willing, we have agreed to increase the pressure on Russia, agreed that we must find long-term financing of Ukraine's ability to keep fighting, boost Ukraine's defense industry with European financing, finance much-needed US weapons, and to put more pressure on Putin's weak economy with new sanctions. I think this week we have taken significant steps with EU's new sanctions package, targeting Russian energy sector, the shadow fleet, and much more. United States have now sanctioned, as we already have heard, Russia's two largest oil companies. And already last week, the UK, announced sanctions targeting those companies as well. I think Putin's strategy has been to wait for us to stop, at some point to give up. But of course this will never happen. So once again, we have today agreed to be united in our efforts, and our promise to you, dear Volodymyr, and to Ukraine and to all Europeans is that we are willing to continue, of course.
Thank you so much. And then to you, Dick, please.
Thank you, Keir, and thank you for hosting the Coalition of the Willing today. And Volodymyr, thank you for being here as yesterday in the European Council. And both meetings had the same purpose, peace. And in doing so, and making sure that that will happen, we need to keep Ukraine in the fight, as everyone more or less stated today in different words. We need to maximize support to Ukraine. And Ukrainian needs have to be leading in that. What we see is that Russia is the only party rejecting a ceasefire, circumventing all diplomatic initiatives and continuing to attack Ukraine. The only way to persuade Putin to engage in serious talks is to increase economic pressure on Russia and our support for Ukraine. This week, important measures were taken in the EU and the US, and coordination for further steps we could take is necessary. First of all, on sanctions. It would be good if the EU were to copy the US-UK sanctions against Lukoil and Rosneft. We must also do more to dismantle the shadow fleet systems, and the Netherlands will take its part when it comes to the North Sea. This could hit Putin hard financially, as this undermines his revenues on global oil markets. Second is support. It's crucial that all countries contribute. Only then can we maintain a high level of support and keep Ukraine afloat militarily and economically. We must increase military support bilaterally as well as by ordering armor packages from the US, and a couple of the speakers already mentioned the Pearl package. And we must make sure we step up our energy assistance to help Ukraine and the Ukrainians through the winter. We are very concerned with Russia's ongoing attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure before the start of the winter, especially on its domestic gas production. Costs for recovery are high and the need for gas imports have increased. The Netherlands, therefore, will increase financial and material support on energy, and we urge all our partners to consider increasing their contributions as well. We can put more pressure on Putin to end this war if we work even more closely together and widen our impact on Russia. And at the same time, this is the way to create the best possible conditions under which Ukraine is able to negotiate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dick. Thank you, colleagues. We're now going to attempt a Q&A, a five-way Q&A, where we will each ask, be asked a question. I'm going to start with Beth, please, from Sky.
Thank you. Prime Minister Beth Rigby from Sky News. This is a question to both Prime Minister Starmer and President Zelenskyy, if I may. You are the coalition of the willing, but you're unable to stop President Putin without US support. How disappointing is it that President Trump won't at the moment provide long-range Tomahawk missiles? And is the President right when he says you'll hopefully be able to get the war over without them? Can you? And PM Starmer, if I may, this domestic question. Overnight you suffered a disastrous election loss in Caerphilly, a seat that's been a Labour-held seat for over a century. Was it a gut punch for you? And if you can't turn this around in the Senate elections next May, will you have to go? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Let me start with the question of Ukraine, because it is really important that we address the support that we're all able to put in, particularly as we go into the winter. And here we have the coalition of the willing. Today you had the EU yesterday, but we are all working with President Trump, and therefore we're all working as one wider coalition here in relation to the support we need to put in for Ukraine. On missiles, we've put in more missiles from the UK in recent days and weeks, and pushing the case for long range. It is really important that we do have long range, and those discussions are ongoing. And of course the protection of energy, because Putin is attacking the energy in Ukraine, and that needs protection. We've had discussion today about how we can stop those attacks and how we can better protect those energy suppliers. On the question of the US, what's happened this week is really significant. I think on the sanctions package and the bearing down on oil and gas, this week has been a very significant week because we went early with the measures that we, the UK, took. President Trump came in with really important measures that have had a real impact. And then, of course, the EU followed in with a further package of sanctions this week as well. And I think if I was to pick out one thing this week that was of most significance, it would be the combined impact of those packages, not only because of the impact they have on the Russian economy and the pressure that they put on, but also because they demonstrate the point that whether it's the coalition of the willing, the EU or the US, we are all coordinating clearly in our efforts to support Ukraine and effectively doing so. The other thing I would point to is the progress made on Russian assets. Yesterday, the EU took a very important step forward, and there was absolute clarity in this afternoon's meeting that we need to see that progress come to fruition within a short timetable, because that would be a really material further support that we can put in for Ukraine. So when we said that the ambition really this week, if you like, is to take Russian oil and gas off the global market, we've taken a significant step forward. I would also add that the measures or the movement in position by India and China in relation to Russian energy and oil in particular are also significant. I think what you'll detect behind that is the sort of coordination and discussions that are going on, have been going on today, are going on between us pretty well all of the time, and having a very significant impact on Russia, because we must put Ukraine in the strongest position. This is going to be a hard winter, of course, particularly when it comes to protecting energy, and it is very important that whilst, of course, we want to get to a ceasefire and a lasting peace, we will, in my view, only get there if we put Ukraine in the strongest possible position. We must never lose sight of that aspect of it. And I'm really pleased to see the coalition of the willing so determined and united on this. Of course, to some extent, the coalition was set up to answer the question, what about security guarantees? But to see this wider coalition now working in a coordinated way, I think it really reinforces why the coalition of the willing is so important. In relation to the by-election, look, I'm deeply disappointed by the results. I'm not going to suggest otherwise. I spoke to the First Minister this morning, and clearly we need to reflect and regroup and double down on the delivery in Wales, and we clearly need to do much more. Volodymyr, can I pass over to you on the first issue?
Thank you very much for the question. So, first of all, we're not finding and we're not searching the way how to stop Putin and how to finish this war without the United States. So our plan is to make strong steps together. That is the plan, by the way, of Putin. He wants to divide us, to make us weaker. And that's why I think that we have to do everything together. First, of course, pressure on Putin, but really practically. First, sanctions, and you see 19th package, and oil pressure from the United States. And I think this is a very strong step. The second point is long-range pressure between us. From the very beginning, it was about our drones, our long range. Then, God bless, we had such partners like UK and France, and the partners gave us Storm Shadows and Scalps. Then, only after that, United States joined us, and we began to use ATACMS. Not big number, but in any way, it's about together. Yes, and now we count on some more strong instruments, but we will see. Yes, then about air defense. Again, it's about together decisions. We really don't have something which can destroy ballistic. That's why Americans helped us, but also Europeans, because firstly, Europe delivered Patriot systems, but United States, They did it together because the United States gave licenses for this. Yes, but I hope that we will in any way we will find a way how to produce our own systems. We have to do it, and I think this is the most important thing, that politically it's very important to go together. That what about coalition or willing, and the result at the end will be security guarantees. And again, with the security guarantees, we need to have United States. This is very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Volodymyr, I'm going to pass over to you to call your question, please.
Thank you so much.
Highly prepared.
Валерія Пашко, доброго дня, Суспільне.
Public Broadcaster of Ukraine. I have one question for all. It's on reparation loans. So, Mr. President, you were quite optimistic about the political decisions yesterday, but it seems not to have happened yet. What's your view on that? Is it disappointing now for you and Prime Minister Frederiksen and Prime Minister Skov? Why the Council conclusions were changed yesterday? Like the leaders didn't give the green light to the Commission to develop the legal framework for these reparation loans. What the discussion looked like yesterday? And Prime Minister Starmer, for you, is the EU could join to share this financial burden, because the EU aims to bring on board all the G7 countries? Thanks.
Yeah, I will begin. Thank you. So I think that the decision with Russian frozen assets is crucial for us, and but I think that there are 3 steps in this question with frozen assets. The first one is political decision, then practical decision, and then only then implementation. And I think that yesterday we've got political decision. That's why I think this is a positive signal. Then practical decision. We hope that we can get it to the end of this year. And only after that, implementation. So that, God bless, we can have at the very beginning of the year. But we will see. Thank you.
Meta probably makes sense.
Yes, let me be very clear. I think the idea of a so-called reparation loan is good. I haven't seen any alternative. And the idea of letting Russia pay for the damages they have done in Ukraine is the only way forward. Of course, there are some technical questions that has to be answered. There are a lot of details that we have to work on. But first and foremost, this is a political decision and a political choice. I support the idea totally, and I think we have to work in a way that we have a solution before Christmas Eve, so we are able to ensure that we can finance Ukraine for the next years. I know some colleagues find this way forward more difficult than I do. And we have to solve the problems, but I also have to say, what is the alternative? The alternative is not to let Russia win this war, and the alternative is not to ask all the Europeans to pay instead of Russia. So we need to solve the technical issues. I am sure that we will be able to do that, and then we will hopefully, I will work for that, have a decision before Christmas Eve.
Dick, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you. And of course, I fully agree with Mette. But let me just add a few points. The political decision yesterday was made, and that's very important, that we are going to financially support Ukraine in 26 and 27. And that's an important decision we made yesterday. It's important for Ukraine, it's important for the European Union, it's important for all our partners. Then the second issue is that we talked about, and I think this is an important issue. Of course, you can say it's technical or financial, but there are risks, and we talk about mutualization of risks. And I heard a lot of countries and leaders yesterday say that they want a guarantee. And that's important, because we have to share the risk, and it cannot be only put only on Belgium. And then, third of all, I hope, just as Mette said, that we come to an agreement on the technical workout of the reparation loan, because financially it's going to be important, but also politically it's important to hurt Russia, and therefore I'm much in favor. Thank you.
Just linking the two, if I may. Firstly, the political decision that was made yesterday by the EU is really significant, and we shouldn't lose that. The question of the Russian assets has always been complicated and difficult, and there's no pretending otherwise, and it is really important that the detail is worked through. I think Mette is right to say putting a timetable around that makes complete sense, but I wouldn't underestimate the significance of the move that was made yesterday, and a very high level of agreement today that we need to make progress on that. In relation to your broader point about the UK and the EU in particular, yes, we are coordinating a lot of what we do, and that is a very good thing. It's a very good thing in the field of Ukraine. We are doing it much more broadly on defence and security and trade and the economy, actually. That reflects a number of things. Firstly, our shared and long-held belief that we are most effective in our support for Ukraine when we act as a group of countries, whether that's the EU and the UK working together, as we have done on most of the sanction packages. It's no accident that we act at the same time, or the wider group of the coalition of the willing. And just to emphasise something that Volodymyr said, it was welcome to have the new Prime Minister of Japan on the call today. I think it was her first international engagement, and she made a statement of principle about where she stands, and it was a very strong statement to the coalition of the willing. The fact that she chose this forum as her first international contribution and was so clear and powerful in her words, I think emphasises that coalition and the ability to bring together so many countries here is really important. So the first reason the UK and the EU are working well together is because of that most effective rule. The second is, since the EU-UK reset, I am proud and pleased to say we are coordinating much more across a wider range of issues. We live in a world where there are many, many challenges, many opportunities, and my strong view is that when the UK and the EU are able to work together, as we've shown we are able to, we're better able to meet those challenges. And of course, having Mark here heading up NATO gives you a sense of the depth of the group of countries now working together really pretty effectively in relation to our defence of Ukraine. Thank you very much. Mark, I'm going to ask you to call your question.
Yes, I believe that Reuters will ask me a question.
Hi there.
Yes, it works.
Alistair Smout from Reuters. Secretary General, after your talks in Washington this week, what's your impression of the chance that the US will give Tomahawks in the end, or is it time for other countries to step up? To Prime Minister Starmer, why hasn't Britain signed up to NATO's Pearl scheme to buy US weapons to give to Ukraine? Is it because the Ministry of Defence is running out of money? And to President Zelenskyy, I know you said that you wanted everyone to move together on long-range missiles, but while you convinced President Trump to give Tomahawks, would you like European countries and Britain to do more on long-range missiles? Thank you.
Well, on your first question, when this came up in my meetings on Wednesday in the White House, I also said that it's up to each ally to decide which type of weapons they want to deliver to Ukraine. And that's really a decision by each of the individual allies. And I've also said this before, and this is not new, that Ukraine has the right, obviously, to defend itself, particularly, of course, against all the attacks by Russia. And that includes striking targets in Russia with long-range weapons. Now, when it comes to the US, let's not forget, the US is providing, as we speak, a wide range of weapons to Ukraine, including high-end weaponry like Patriot systems, HIMARS and ATACMS. What happened since July? There was a risk that somehow maybe that flow of weaponry from the US into Ukraine would somehow become a little bit smaller, that flow. But luckily, in July, the President decided, President Trump, to really open the floodgates again when it comes to lethal and non-lethal weapons into Ukraine. Crucial stuff which only the US can provide. For example, interceptors for Patriot systems, defending innocent civilians in Ukraine and protecting crucial civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. And what NATO has done with our allies, we organized the whole thing because the US said we are going to provide it but paid for by allies. So we have bundled that together. The Netherlands was so kind, maybe because I'm from the Netherlands, but they were so kind to immediately buy the first package, and then others have followed. So billions have now been committed, and the stuff is now flowing into Ukraine. Crucial gear again, which only the US at the moment can provide, because it is never, it's not in the stockpiles of Europe or wherever. So that's happening now, and we are working very hard to make sure that that flow will continue to the tune of about $1 billion or a little bit over $1 billion a month. And then on particularly the Tomahawks, of course, the President and I discussed that. The issue remains under review by the President, and again, it's up to the US to decide.
Look, in relation to the UK's position, our support for Ukraine is very clear, and it's been there from the start. And we've made a huge contribution, whether that's financial or in particular on sanctions, the work we're doing there to bear down the example I've given of what we've done just this week. Also on capability, whether that's drone co-production, which we're working on at the moment, or long range, and many other aspects of capability. And in the liaison work that we have operating with our Ukrainian colleagues. So we're very clear about the support that we're putting in. And the reason for that is not just because this is about Ukraine's freedom and sovereignty, but because it's about the freedom that we all have across Europe. This is, of course, a fight for Ukraine's future and sovereignty, but it's also a fight for Europe and for the United Kingdom. And therefore, this isn't simply an act of us working with Ukraine solely for Ukrainian benefit. We are working with Ukraine for Ukraine, of course, but also for the benefit of all the rest of us. Thank you very much. Mette, can I come to you?
I don't have any.
You don't? Okay, great. It's a good thing Beth didn't know that to start with, otherwise she'd have definitely had another question. Dick, can I come to you first?
Yes, and the question is going to be a surprise, that's I'm sure. AMP, or in good Dutch.
Sorry, I thought it was to reply on what you were asked for. No.
My apologies, Mette.
Sorry, of course. Danmarks Radio. Yeah. No. I thought you wanted me to reply on questions for you.
I'm so sorry, Mette.
Danmarks Radio.
Yeah, apologies.
But also for you, Prime Minister Starmer. You say you want to take Russian oil and gas off the global market to put pressure on Putin. But since the beginning of the war, the EU countries alone have bought Russian energy worth more than 215 billion euros. Doesn't this proposal come 3.5 years too late? And also for you, President Zelenskyy, what do you think? Do you think this comes too late?
Mette, do you want?
Does it come too late? Yes, it does. But it doesn't mean that we haven't done anything through this war. Also, when it comes to Russian oil and gas, we have reduced our dependencies a lot. But of course, all what we want to do is to ensure that Russia's economy is weakened, and that we put Ukraine in a strong position as possible. So I'm happy about the sanctions. I'm happy about the decisions we made only a few days ago to get totally out of Russian oil and gas. That was a very important decision. And now we simply have to continue. And I'm very pleased that for the first time we have a combined pressure on Russia between UK, between the European Union, and between US. So I think right now we are taking the right decisions. But of course I would have hoped that Europe would would have said goodbye to Russian oil and gas already years ago.
Thanks so much. Better now than never. So we are very thankful to partners, to Europe and to the United States with sanctions on Russian energy sector. What about us? We began to fight against Russian energy with our sanctions. It was long range. We could do only this. So, but now it's great that we can use such instrument like sanctions. Thank you.
Just picking up on this. Look, I think it's important when we say we want to take oil and gas off the market, that we're describing an end of a process, not the beginning of a process. So this isn't the first time the Coalition of Willing, the EU, and others have come together to take action. It's where we're getting, I hope, towards the end of the process where we will take it off the market. Therefore, there's been months and years of our work actually on this. And I think it is really important that we continue to bear down. There are some countries which, in my view, should be moving a lot more quickly in relation to this. And obviously, that's a point that we make on a regular basis. But this is a description of what I hope will be the end of the process, not the beginning of the process. Thank you very much. And Dick, can I ask you to...
Yeah, I try once again. Yes.
It's still the same person.
Yeah, it's still the same person, lucky for me. Yes.
To Prime Minister Schoof, President Zelenskyy is very clearly asking for more military support, specifically long range. He hasn't been able to get that this week. The Dutch government considers itself to be a frontrunner in supporting Ukraine. Why is it so difficult to significantly increase this kind of support? And President Zelenskyy, do you need allies like the Netherlands to increase their support? And has this week been disappointing to you?
Well, thank you for the question. And I think it's, as you said, we are front runner for a long time. I think that's very important. It's something that the Prime Minister of the UK just mentioned as well. I mean, we do this because we absolutely believe, of course, that we have to support Ukraine and the Ukrainian people in the fight against the aggression war of Russia. But at the same time, it's so important to support, and we must never forget, that it's also about freedom and security in Europe, and therefore also for the Netherlands. And I want to underline that again, once again, because sometimes people forget. So it's not a war far away, it's a war close by. Having said so, I think we do everything we can to support Ukraine, whatever it takes, and that also in relation to long-range weapons. Even the Dutch Parliament would agree, did agree actually, in favor in a motion in the Dutch Parliament. So I feel very comfortable in trying to work together with Volodymyr and the countries, wherever they are, that want to help, and to make sure that we do everything we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And first of all, really we are thankful to the Netherlands, one of the biggest donators in Europe and in the world. It's true. I think this year you donated more than 4 billion. Yes, it's a big amount, really. I understand that it's not simple, yes, for any kind of country, but really we are thankful for this. But in any way, I'm very thankful for your questions to partners.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to go off in reverse order.
Right.